For me, the most unique moment about the 2020 election with Joe Biden and Donald Trump that stuck out to me, even though there's a plethora of crazy things that happened during that election cycle, would be when Joe Biden came up to Charlemagne the God, who is a um, podcast hoster and radio talk show host. He's a black man. And Joe Biden said, if you're having, along the lines of, if you're having trouble deciding whether or not you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. And ever since I heard something like that, even though I'm not as a black man, you know, well, as an Indian man, I really ever get pandered to or catered to or spoken to by any politician, but I digress. But after that clip, I knew, you know, even though I felt like, Biden was probably going to win, I just knew his presidency wasn't going to be of something of forward change, forward thinking, or progress. And I would like to say more or less my prediction was right, as Biden's presidency was something very unsatisfactory for all people on the political spectrum. And now, just recently, you have Barack Obama coming on the offensive, um, attacking men, specifically black men, for not having the same support for Kamala Harris as they did for when he was running, in 2008. And, I didn't think much of it, obviously, as not a black man. But, he went a step further, saying, this is a man issue. We're, as men, we are not um, for a, women president, and we're making a bunch of excuses going so far as to supporting, Donald Trump just because we don't want a woman president. And, I really disagree with that notion that obviously, sure, the idea that Kamala Harris is a woman doesn't appeal to appeal to some people at least. There are definitely those voters who don't want to see a woman as president. I 100% believe that that is a scenario. However, to call that the majority, I would say is a disservice. And even though I would say I'm a big fan of Barack Obama and what he was able to accomplish in 2008 throughout his presidency, as his 8 years, I find it kind of distasteful, what he said, and I think he meant it in good spirits, though. But I think, the way it came off didn't really um, do much favors, and I didn't think much of it until I, went on TikTok and Instagram Reels, and a bunch, and I mean a bunch of black men, and including some black women, came out and said, they feel as though the Democrat Party has been lying to them, including Obama, and they're not going to fall for this, And I think what's interesting to me is, like, I think it's basic. I think amongst all of us humans, we don't like being talked down to. Yeah, I brought it up in this channel multiple times. One of my frustrations with the Democrat Party is the fact that I almost feel like my vote for them is just seen as something of a guarantee, and they don't have to do much to earn my vote just because I'm a person of color. I have to vote for a certain way. However, I would like to make it very clear that doesn't mean I'm just because I've have my frustrations with the Democrats. I mean, I'm an all-out Republican, gunslinging, pro-lifer, whatever stereotypical Republican you could conjure up in your head. I'm not saying that either. But the Democratic Party is definitely facing a lot of challenges right now with Kamala Harris, and I think it has to do more with the fact that just because she's a woman, I think, in 2016, black men overwhelmingly supported Hillary Clinton, 81%, according to Pew Research. And, what's the issue, with Kamala Harris? Obviously, the poll numbers come out, and she's not getting that 81% of the black male support in the polls. So it can't just have to do with the fact that she's only a woman. I think this pandering and this kind of tokenism is really frustrating people. Not to set, again, I'm going to reiterate this a lot, not to say that the Republican Party is doing a better job of it, but people are finally, becoming frustrated with this notion that the Democrat Party is consistently and truthfully, um, on the side of, the people of color. And for me personally, you know, I am all for a woman president. A woman president is qualified, and I agree with her policies, and I think she could do a bang up job. I would totally vote for her. And not to say I'm not voting for Kamala or Trump. I haven't made my decision yet, truthfully. But I find it, interesting that Obama is coming on the offensive here because he really doesn't usually make these kinds of statements. So that also reveals to me that, Obama, looking at this internal polling, is very, very worried about what's going on. And, Trump's barely leading in most, if not all, the swing states. Um, and I know that's obviously still within the margin of error, but, you look at 2016 and 2020, especially 2016, and yeah, of course 2020, but Trump exceedingly, outperforms his polls consistently. So if Trump is plus zero point 0.5 average in Pennsylvania, that's very alarming to Democrats because they usually underperform their polling numbers. So this election is, you know, I predict from now on, the polls are literally just going to be within plus. The highest number for Harris you're going to get in a swing state is +5, and so for Trump, it's all within the margin of error. Um, it's going to be such an interesting election, but I think as it stands now, Trump has a little more secure lead in Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia. A little bit more. I'm using that word very cautiously. So he has an easier path to the White House than Kamala. So, they're pulling out all these stops, and it seems as though it's making Obama frustrated. But I think in an attempt to, you know, single out black men and men in general for generalizing and saying, um, they don't support Kamala Harris simply because she's a woman. I doubt that. I really do. I think there's more than the fact that she's a woman. Um, but this election has had many firsts. We've never had a candidate just come in like this, especially from an incumbent. And if Donald Trump is the 47th president, I guarantee Joe Biden will be. He'll be a very emotional man. I'll say that. But like I said, I'll be giving my prediction in the coming weeks. But I just found this very interesting. The statement coming out of Barack Obama. With that being said, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow.